So another Andy B 2-minute video. Simple one today. God never rushes. Sometimes it can feel like all these things around us, all these many things have suddenly started moving at the same time, and it can feel like we're being pushed along and it's rushing. But there's one thing I can promise you, absolutely, unequivocally, God never rushes. Why can I say that? Really simply, he exists without having to be completely incapacitated by time like we are. He operates outside of time. Well, if time isn't an obstacle, then you don't have to rush, do you? Simply put. But the beautiful thing that I heard once said is that God chooses to be limited by the confines of time in order to have an ongoing relationship with us. And I love that. God doesn't rush. If God's given you something to do and you prayerfully, biblically decided this is what God wants you to do, if you've got counsel and you've done all the things you're supposed to know that this thing, that's what God wants you to do, then you don't need to worry about having the resources to do what God's asked you to do, to have the time for what God's asked you to do, to have the energy or even the capacity to do what God's asked you to do. Because if God's asked you to do it, he will give you all you need in order for you to do it. God never, ever operates to trip us up. That's just not God's nature. He wouldn't do that. That would be against his nature. But when you've got that thing God's asked you to do, don't think, well, why hasn't it happened yet? Why hasn't God opened this door? Why hasn't God done this? Why hasn't God done that? I can guarantee it's because you're rushing it and God isn't. I'm reading Corrie ten Boom's book at the moment about the Second World War, the family life in Holland for her sister, her father, the Jews that they would hide. Some of the things in that message, I feel like God's rushing, but it's not rushing. It's God putting things into place one at a time so that in his time, all that comes together. And that can feel like a rush, but it's never God rushing because he doesn't need to. If God's given you something to do, don't fear or worry about him equipping you for what he's asked you to do. God won't cause you to trip. He won't cause you to stumble. We do that very well by ourselves. But if God's asked you to do something, be patient, be wise, wait for his timing, his lead. Don't rush ahead of him and don't lag behind him. Wait for his lead and he won't fail you. Just a thought.